And
You hooked up tonight?
Are we,
hey, could you lead us in the pledge? This could be your last time. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson. Here. Commissioner Fresco. Here. Vice Chair Lambert. Commissioner Landris.
here.
Commissioner McKinnon. Commissioner Perry.
Here.
Chair Fonda Bernardi.
Here.
Before we have the planning director's report, can I make a quick agenda motion?
Yes.
May I move to that we place 9A on the consent agenda as 8C?
What item is that on? I'm looking
It's
up
the
my-
sorry, it's the CUP for the Brixton.
No, I'm
suggest-
going to want to hear that.
Oh, you want to hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Director's report.
Good evening, Commission. Your next meeting is June 19th. It's a special meeting. We're starting at 6 p.m. Items on that agenda include the Pico Boulevard zoning changes red line as a continued item, the R1 update discussion, Promenade 3.0 update discussion, as well as Promenade 3.0 resolution of intention for the zoning ordinance amendments. July 3rd is canceled. We've heard from several commissioners tonight that it might be helpful to look for another night that we could meet around that time, and we will look into that and get back to everyone as soon as we can. The idea, I guess, would be to move the July 17th meeting up. But again, we'd need to find a night to do that, and we'd also have to make sure that the items that are on that agenda will be ready to go sooner rather than later. Items on that agenda include the R1 update, the red line, zoning map corrections, ROI, new housing models, ROI, and then 423, 429 Ocean Avenue track map. And then coming up at City Council on June 11th, we have the Parklet study session. And that's to look at what's happened on Main Street with the 3 pilot program parklets, and then get direction from council on where to go with the program. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a quick question. I received an email today suggesting that there was going to be a release of the initial recommendations for the Sunset Park traffic safety plan next Thursday, June 13th. And I was wondering, that's going to be happening at Friends of Sunset Park. Will those sets of recommendations be released to the public prior to that meeting, or
Let me
presented?
check with staff in traffic engineering and get back to the commission in the morning, because I'm not sure what the plan is to roll that out. But I'll let you know.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you all know that I'm not going to be here for any of those meetings that are up there, actually. I'm not going to be here June 19th either, just so that is known. And I am desolate about it, frankly. Am I allowed to send in a letter with my opinion from the road? Is that something, if I have something I want to say, even though I can't vote?
Yes, you may. You will not be able to vote, but you are free to share your thoughts based on the agenda that you received, and your fellow commissioners and the community can hear it as well.
So basically, I should just send it to Kyle as if I was a
And it will
regular
be distributed.
member of the public. Okay, cool. Thank you.
As far as the parklets go, whose domain is that? Is that Parks and Recs, or is that, in other words, they're going straight to City Council? They're kind of orphans? What's the?
So there's actually a lot of different departments involved in the process. So certainly Public Works plays a role because it's located in the street. Yeah, I don't know if any other boards or commissions have weighed in on the parklets program. But yeah, the idea is that we would go to council with a study session and get their direction on where to go next. We could end up visiting other stops along the way if that's what comes out of the council discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. There's no minutes to approve, so statements of official action. We have one before us. Nina, you have some revisions you would like to make?
Yeah, when we had our hearing, we made some changes to the STOA about making sure that the interpretive program was permanent and that the, not just a brochure or some ephemeral piece of material, and that the recordation of the historic resource that's going to be demolished be reviewed by the Landmarks Commission for completeness, and, so that somebody that is really interested in this kind of thing can make sure that it really tells the story as it should be told. So I sent some changes to to Kyle, which she kindly typed for us already. And it had to do with, in condition 9 on page 9, there's a change about midway through the paragraph about making sure that they don't just check on the method and appropriateness of the commission doesn't just look at the appropriateness of the materials, but they really see the final packet so they can make sure it's complete. And then in condition 10, there's 2 changes that have to do with that. In condition 10 on page 9, I added the word permanent in front of interpretive educational program on the 3rd line, and then added the word public after, so it's a public exhibit and not some brochure that they pick up in the elevator. Oh, they don't have shared elevators. And sorry. And then at the end of condition 10, the very last phrase starts with "and exhibits, tours, events, or published information forms and brochures." That's all deleted because that's exactly what we didn't want. And then at the very end of condition 11, where they talk about digitally documenting materials and possibly salvaging some if it possible, but photographing them along the way so they're recorded, I just added a line at the very end saying that that information would also be included in the recordation packet.
Okay.
I move approval.
Yeah, does the applicant have to speak on this since we're making changes to the statement of official
Well, they're
action?
all in compliance
This
with
is
the
not a reopening,
discussion.
so this is just a record of the motion that you made. So if the property owner has questions, they may ask, but.
Okay. So we've had a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, let's call the question.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Landris?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Chair Fonda Bernardi?
Yes. Okay. So we are on to item 8A.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Okay. Any,
If you have any ex parte disclosures for the consent calendar, you may want to do those now.
okay.
I
Any
don't.
ex parte? Nina? None? Okay, we've had a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Let's call roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Landris?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Chair Fonda Bernardi?
Yes. Okay. Item 9A.
Sorry, it's so anticlimactic for everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. Let's see. So this is a modification for 2827 Pico Boulevard regarding the alcohol permit.
Correct.
And is there any ex parte communication regarding this?
Yeah, today at 4:30, I drove by the site and through the alley behind the property.
Got it. Okay.
Great. Good evening, Planning Commission and Chair. I am Kerry Fukui. I'm an Associate Planner with the City Planning Division, and I'm presenting the conditional use permit for alcohol at 2827 Pico Boulevard, the Brixton, case number 18 ENT 0397. So the request before you tonight is for a conditional use permit to extend hours of incidental on sale and consumption of beer, wine, and distilled spirits, type 47 ABC license, in conjunction with an existing restaurant, the Brixton. Currently, the CUP 13 CUP 15 is in effect for this location, which permits alcohol service between 11:30 and 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 11:30 a.m. to midnight Friday and Saturday. The proposed CUP for tonight is to extend these hours from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. daily. So here's some context of where this restaurant is located. It's on Pico Boulevard at the northeast corner of Pico and Yorkshire Avenue. It is neighborhood commercial zoning. You can see to the east, to the west, and to the south is also neighborhood commercial. And to the north of that is an R1 zone. Behind this commercial property, as you can see here, there's a large, about close to 8,000 square foot parking lot that abuts the commercial zone and acts as a buffer between the alley and the R1 zone. So here's the existing facade along Pico Boulevard, as well as the existing facade in the bottom picture along Yorkshire Avenue. And a bit of background for this site. It's an existing 2,315 square foot restaurant with 76 seats. 12 of those seats are at a counter. This CUP does not include any expansion of bar area, square footage, or seats for the restaurant. It's really just to extend the hours from what you can see here from to the 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. daily. The justification for the applicant for this is to add additional services at the restaurant, such as weekend brunch services, as well as they want the flexibility for occasional morning events during the week. There are 2 other alcohol outlets within a 500-foot radius. This is a little different from what was in the staff report. One of them is Barkowski, which is on the same parcel as the Brixton, which is kind of, the numbers aren't coming up. This is Barkowski here, the Brixton in the middle, and then Laris, which didn't show up in my initial entitlement search, and that's because this restaurant was actually in place before the CUP process. Additionally, there was a Pico Wellbeing Project as an outreach in the neighborhood and has explored preferred land uses from the business and residential community. And a retention and support of existing small businesses and restaurants has emerged as a major concern for the neighborhood. So again, here's a site plan of the property. You can see this parcel includes 2 buildings. The first one includes a Brixton as well as another retail space, and then the building adjacent has 3 additional retail spaces, and then the parking in the rear. Here's the floor plan for the existing restaurant. None of this is proposed to change. And the key findings for tonight are that the project will not adversely affect the welfare of the neighborhood. It will not contribute to an undue concentration of alcohol outlets. It will not detrimentally affect nearby neighborhoods, and it will not increase traffic congestion or generate a demand for parking. The selected conditions of approval that are carrying over from the previous CUP and are amended for this CUP are the limit on the number of seats, so a total of 76, as well as a change of the hours to allow for alcohol service in conjunction with food service from 8 to 1 a.m. daily. There were public notices mailed out in a 750-foot radius from the Brixton. 2 letters were received in opposition of the project, and 15 letters were received in support. And I will open up for comments and questions.
Okay. Any questions? I have 2.
Okay.
Have there been any complaints about noise or other disturbance of any sort from this restaurant that you know of?
Based on the letters that I received, 2 of the letters mentioned that, they'll hear disturbances from the parking lot of people leaving. There is one incidence of an accident of someone leaving and hitting another car on Yorkshire Avenue. But that's what I've heard of so far.
Okay. If there had been complaints, would they rise to where you would see them, or do they just vanish into some sort of global website somewhere? And
Like would I have personally?
well, no. I mean, with the planning department,
Okay.
would you be able to search some databases where all these
To
complaints
see if there were
stack
any...
up? I assume those are the only 2, but I'm
Right.
asking a bigger question: how do we handle complaints in general?
Yeah, so in the CUP process, we consult with the police department and CCS, and we provide them with, the conditions of the CUP, what they're requesting. In this case, I discussed the change of hours, and they responded with no comments. So I assume that if there were some concerns, they would go directly through them, but there's generally no database or anything of complaints that we have for this research.
Okay. And my second question is, are there any other restaurants doing the same thing for the same hours on Pico Boulevard, say?
Yeah. So let's see. Laris has 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. daily. Barkowski's hours are 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., but that's a bar without food. Outside of the 750-foot radius, there's Lunetta. They have similar hours. They start at 8 a.m., which is what the
right.
person's proposing, but they end 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. Saturdays.
Okay, so we have one that's identical, one that's kind of identical, and one that's different. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Well, I have questions that I want to hold on to until after we've heard from the applicant and the public, if there are members of the public.
Okay.
But I would like to follow up on that specific question. Some of those nearby restaurants or bars, they are working with a pre-CUP.
Correct.
So there was never their license was never regulated as to time other than the general statewide 2 p.m. you got to be closed. Is that-
Yeah. So they're running on alcohol determinations, which when you look through the history, it's more about the size and the seating, and there's not really mention of the hours.
Okay, thank you.
John?
No questions.
So, to my knowledge, and I haven't made any special trips, but I drive there quite frequently in the neighborhood. The greater impact really is in the morning, associated with brunch use. Ray's is right there. It doesn't have an alcohol license, but it does have long lines on the weekends. So with respect to the questions about complaints, does your search include a search of all other kinds of complaints related to restaurant operations in the vicinity?
It was really just based on what I said earlier, so reaching out to police department and CCS.
But only with respect to Brixton, not with respect to other. So we
Yeah,
don't.
just
We don't
with
know the
respect to
patterns
this.
of. We don't know the complaint patterns with respect to restaurant service in the area.
No, that was
Okay.
not part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So we have the applicant.
Hi. Good evening. My name is David Schlesinger. I'm the owner of the Brixton. We've been in business almost 4 years. Ultimately, if we don't get these extended hours, more than likely I will have to shut down. That's the reality of it. At this point for fiscal 2019, we've lost $5,000. These extended hours will account basically for us being profitable, not much, but just a little, enough to be able to keep our doors open. I worked 365 days last year and I made $27,000. I borrowed almost $1 million to open this place. I hate to say it, but I think I've been an asset to the area. Property values, I was one of the first ones to come in that area as we built up, and had construction. And before we opened, a lot of the apartments in the area were run down. Owners have made them better. Their rents have increased. I know homeowners' property values have increased. We don't get complaints. I feel like most of our neighbors come to our restaurant, whether they like us or not. We're just trying to do the same thing that Laurie's is doing. Unfortunately, for us, Laurie's was open 50 years before us. I implore you to please, vote for this. I really don't have anything else to say. This is ultimately life or death for this restaurant, and I hate to say that. I almost closed in January. I had to borrow $20,000 just to make payroll. We're not planning on it. The 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. 1 a.m. we're not going to be open 1 a.m. every night. That's an extra hour on Fridays, a couple hours on Thursdays. But that difference is on Thursday at 9 o'clock, we'll have 40 people in our restaurant. By 9:30, because they know we close at 10, we have 10 people. If we're able to keep those guests another hour, another 2 hours, that's an extra $200 in revenue. That is actual profit at the end of the day that we don't tend to get, And it's tough to ask for help, but that's the reality. Is I'm asking for your help to be able to keep our business open. I have two business partners. I have 25 employees that count on us being open. I understand there were some letters of opposition, but there were also neighbors who are in that area who are supporting us, who are there every single day. They wrote letters in support. They gave their address, their phone number, their email. I know as a restaurant, as a bar, as a gastropub, not everybody's going to be happy with us there. But at the end of the day, we're not the Joker. And I think we're a positive. And unfortunately, those neighbors who are opposed to us moved in when Laurie's was already there, the Joker was already there, Ray's were already there. So to single us out as the cause of traffic, the cause of noise, that's unfair, because those other businesses do the same thing. Most of our guests, Uber, Lyft, most of them are tech. Our average age is about 34, 35. So it's kind of tough to hear somebody say that we're a detriment when all we've done is try to be a positive. So if you have any questions for me, I would gladly answer.
Any questions? Amy?
I just wanted to start by saying you shouldn't be afraid to say that you're an asset to the neighborhood. I think.
Not everybody thinks that, so I'm not going to say I am or not. I'm not.
I think it was super helpful for me to hear how extending the hours from 10 to later will benefit the restaurant. So thanks for walking us through that. And the earlier hours, are you planning to do some kind of brunch, or are you already doing brunch and it's just about being able to serve alcohol?
It's that. Okay. The 8 a.m., there's special sporting events happen. Women's World Cup is coming up.
Yes, it is.
There's Monday through Friday, we also get calls from people who want to come in and do a breakfast thing, companies or whatever. And they'll be like, can we have mimosas, on Thursday or Friday? And I can't open at those hours all the time. Mm-hmm. I could open, and I tell them I can open and I can serve you food, and then, we want to do mimosas. We're celebrating, it's this or it's that. And I can't really do it. So then they look for somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
The margins are so tight, and they're actually going to get worse. Minimum wage is going up for us $1.25 in less than a month. All right. So I had to raise my prices. But the problem is me raising my prices, not everybody, all these tech companies that are all around, they have commissaries. They eat at lunch. You know, Snapchat opened a commissary, so we lost a tremendous amount of business because of that at lunch. But with prices being raised because of minimum wage, food, you know, now the tariffs are going to happen. These extended hours hopefully make us a profit. The reality of it is, it's probably not. It's going to be able to make it break even. You know, I finally just hired a manager after 3.5 years, 3 months ago, because I had gone over 1.5 years without a day off, being there 10 hours every day. You know, my business partner, the same thing. The American dream used to be able to own a house, maybe open a business. I keep having to fund on credit cards, you know, get bank loans to survive. And the reality of it is those couple of hours,
Make a difference.
you know, 10 people come in because of that and spend $10 a person, that's $100. In a month, that's $3,000. That gets us closer to breaking even.
Great. Thank you. It's helpful for us to understand that perspective.
Any other questions for me?
Any other questions?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Discussion.
I move approval.
Second.
Oh, sorry. I showed my cards. I showed my cards.
Hi, Jeff Purchase. I own 2202 Yorkshire, a couple houses down. We owned the property before when the Joker was there. David's a hardworking guy. The Brixton, honestly, is a nice place. We go there. They had a very nice sporting event when the Soccer World Cup was held there. So, you know, I have no issues with the Brixton as a business. I do think 2 o'clock is a long time. So I would prefer that if additional hours are extended for the Brixton, that it basically stop at 12. 12's pretty late. If you look at actually Laura's down the road, they have very little business after 12. So this is mostly a bar. Yes, they serve food, but the clientele primarily is alcohol related. Laura's is primarily a restaurant. And people have beer, maybe they have, sometimes they have margaritas. But this is really primarily a bar. We owned the property when the Joker was there. The Joker was a lot rowdier place. But, you know, I feel for David. He works really hard at his business. It's a pretty good business. But I just think 2 o'clock's too late to extend hours for that place. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, morning business is fine.
Okay.
Whatever, you know.
The applicant can respond if you want. You have 3 minutes.
First and foremost, we're a restaurant. Yes, we want to sell alcohol. But the more food we sell, the more people drink. That's the reality of it. At lunch, we're selling food. At night, the only other option is McDonald's at 10 o'clock. People go to McCabe's, and there's a show that ends, they want to eat. I'm sorry, but 10 o'clock is not that late. You know, in the summer months, in a month from now, it's going to get dark at 8:30, and I close in almost an hour after that. We're first and foremost a restaurant. We want to serve as much food as possible. You know, that to hear him say I'm a hardworking guy and he has no issue with it, that's great, but we're not a bar first and foremost. We are a restaurant first and foremost. You know, we take pride in our food. We try to do very good food. If we didn't care about food, we wouldn't have an extensive menu that we do have. I wouldn't spend $60,000 a year on a chef that makes more than twice what I make if I didn't care about food. We care about our food. Plain and simple. We try to do really good food. I have many guests who come in and think our food is better in Upper West, and Upper West is a restaurant, first and foremost. People don't think of it as a bar. We are a restaurant just like them. I will put my food up against their food. I have complete confidence that many people would say our food is just as good, if not better. So to sit here and tell that we're a bar first, one, is offensive to me for all the work that I've done. Plain and simple. So that's my only response I have. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank
I
you.
restate my motion.
My second.
I have a question
To
of
approve.
staff.
Oh, okay.
The staff report talks about how this proposal connects to the goals of the Pico Wellbeing Project.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get clarification. Are the takeaways coming out of the Pico Wellbeing Project thus far that people want smaller restaurants staying open later, or they want smaller restaurants, smaller businesses along Pico Boulevard?
I think one of the biggest things that have come out, there is a talk of size, but a lot of it is ensuring that restaurants and locally owned, businesses, small businesses are staying in place. There has been a request of small restaurants, and I actually think this might be what would be defined as a small restaurant under 2,500 square feet. Right, and here you can see the slide shows just all the restaurants and or bars on Pico Boulevard. In red is the Brixton, which also shows the parcel with Barkowski, but the rest, the blue, are what remains outside of that. It's not showing the whole boulevard, but that's because this is where they're all concentrated for the whole neighborhood. All right. Yeah, and there are the ones to the right, a lot of them are fast food drive-through restaurants as well.
So it's tying it back to the question is just looking for ways to support small businesses and being able to stay open longer.
I think
staff is interpreting that as a way to support them, but specifically late night meals, late night operations, has that specifically come out of the process?
So, well, I guess one thing is that it's more about the opportunities that staff could provide to make it easier for businesses to find other sources of revenue to stay competitive and be able to stay in place.
Okay, got it. All right, those are my questions.
I'm in the queue, so I'd like to hear from Peter, actually. But I will observe that your map is missing the Daily Pint, which is just west of Cloverfield on the south side of Pico. It's also, I didn't know if, oh, you're right, it is missing Daisy, irrespective of the CUP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think we need to add a couple dots to the map, but the point is that there's just not a preponderance of small restaurants or bars on Pico Boulevard. This is a map that Commissioner Fresco asked for in the May 15th meeting.
SMC. Yeah. Right.
Maybe we can all get together and touch it up.
Or just go eat.
Right. Just the reason I was twitching over here is to get to Commissioner Perry's question about was there a specific request for late night operations. And I think when we were talking about preferred land uses on the boulevard, there was an appreciation of the full cycle of the day. A lot of people are out of town during the day or working parents, and there has been discussions about nightclubs, bars, and lounges. This is first and foremost a restaurant. We agree with that, but that sentiment really gets to the fact that people want to be able to hang out with their friends and neighbors at night as well. So for us, this approach hits 2 points that are coming out of the Pico Wellbeing Project, both the need to support small businesses and also give the community a place to get together in the evening.
Last thing before we vote, or I'm sure other people have things. For me, though, there has been, I believe it was about a year and a half ago, a conversation, and this is not directly related to the findings needed for the CUP, but there has been a study of potential crosswalks in the neighborhood, and I do know that if we're going to be adding this use, which I'm in favor of, we do need to bear in mind pedestrian safety and pickup safety. So I was wondering if there was anything that you can add about those plans. I know there was even conversation about a potential crosswalk at Yorkshire and Pico, and if not, whether we could, in the minutes of this meeting, I would make a kind of request to staff, independent of the CUP, that we seek an update on the status of that project, because I mean, as far as I'm aware, the Brixton is also in favor of adding a crosswalk in that spot.
I was the one who made a big issue about adding it.
Yeah,
I'm the one who
He started it.
a lot of it.
Right.
In the area.
yeah.
It haven't been, I'm still putting issues. I'm not well liked because of that.
Okay, okay, thank you. We're through with the public testimonies, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, just to address that comment, there is a plan for a Pico safety study, a corridor safety study, which does target this specific part of Pico. I think it's probably about a year out as the mobility division sorts through its priorities. But to support to corroborate Mr. Schlesinger's account, he did raise this issue of crosswalk safety about a year and a half ago. The then nascent Pico Wellbeing Project team rallied around that cause. We visited Mr. Schlesinger. We brought the city traffic engineer, took photos, documented sight lines. So we have all that on record. That is now living with the mobility division as they prepare for the upcoming study.
Okay. Any other questions? Ready to, please.
I just wanted to clarify that just for the record, that the request for hours is from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily, 1 a.m. daily, not 2 a.m.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to call the question.
Do we have a second?
I did.
You did.
No.
Who's?
You're seeking to vote right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was no discussion. Did you want to discuss? Okay. Did you want to discuss?
I do.
Okay, please.
So, I mean, this is the type of business that we want to support, not just on Pico Boulevard, but really on all of our boulevards. And when I look at the existing operating times, I feel like there is opportunity to expand while remaining harmonious with its location and the surrounding neighborhoods. What I have come to see over the course of my time on the commission is that there is how the site is set up, including how the parking is set up, has a significant impact on nearby neighbors. And here we have a case which is not unusual, but it is different from some other CUPs that we've seen in the past, where we have a surface lot right across an alley from housing. And we're talking about well-being as it relates to Pico, but also well-being in general. One of the findings of the well-being index was that people don't get enough sleep, and that there are environmental factors that relate to that. So while I support an expansion of these hours, from past projects and analyzing what we think where a good line is, I would say that what they are proposing crosses that line. It goes too late because of that surface lot. The fact that they do not have outdoor seating really helps their application here tonight. But the impact of people going back to their cars, making noise as they're doing so, I feel is something that we need to consider when we're trying to make the findings of harmony. So I would say one of two things. One, that we discuss an earlier end time, or if we do go the route of 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. as proposed, that we put in the code review, compliance review mechanism, so that in the future there's opportunity to revisit this if indeed these later hours have created an impact.
Is that a substitute motion, or you're just throwing it up for discussion?
I mean, I'm putting forth two different approaches, and I'm interested in commissioners' feedback.
Okay.
If I can, I would say that the compliance review after 24 months would be fine with me as the seconder of the motion, if it's fine
After 24 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
You wanted...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I get hungry after McCabe's. I find, I just really think that the city shuts down at 10 o'clock, and it's not a good thing, and it's just so limiting. So I support the application. I mean, if to get the support of the commission, a compliance review would make people feel better, I would be okay with it, but I support this application.
Let me ask if, from a enforcement standpoint, if there were no compliance review and there were noise problems, what could unhappy residents do?
Yeah, they could certainly contact code enforcement. There's obviously we have a noise ordinance. There are probably things associated with the CUP that require them to monitor, the surrounding area. I mean, I don't know exactly what the conditions within the CUP are, but we could certainly have code enforcement follow up on any complaints and make sure they're operating within the conditions of their CUP and not violating any other ordinances, including the noise ordinance.
And when we did the CUP for the painting folks, I think there was some condition that kind of required a request for quiet after certain hours. I don't know if it was signage or was there something that was, do you remember something like that? Am I completely misremembering? Okay. I don't know.
Was it like in the parking lot or
yeah,
like, be
just
respectful of your neighbors
something
or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recall that, but that's certainly
Okay.
something that could be done.
I'm presuming that could be done even voluntarily by the applicant. Signage in the parking lot. I'm sorry, signage in the parking lot to ask people to be respectful of the neighbors when they leave, to limit loud conversation,
Okay, so we have 3 airplanes that are trying to land on the same runway. We have the original motion. We have a suggestion from here that could either shorten the hours or introduce a compliance review, and now we have some signage. So
I'm saying signage in lieu of
compliance
review or compliance review.
Okay.
after 24 months. I oppose the shortening hours.
Okay, no shortening
I
hours.
like the signage a lot better than compliance review.
Okay, so one signage. Amy?
It looks like Jason's next in the queue and then me. No, okay. Commissioner Perry, I just wanted to clarify the options that you're proposing, which is to no change to what's being proposed tonight, except for the compliance review to happen in 2 years.
That seems appropriate.
And can you guys remind me how this compliance review works? Because my recollection is that it's actually done by staff and it never comes back to us unless there are issues or something. Is that right?
That's right. So this particular requirement that you could add on suggests that within a certain amount of time, if you're saying 24 months, following issuance of the CUP, there would be a compliance report that would be submitted from the applicant to staff, and staff would review and either set the matter for a public hearing, which would be noticed, so it would be a hearing before you to discuss how the applicant has complied with the conditions of the CUP, or we may not feel that it's necessary to schedule that hearing, but the report would be turned in.
Okay. I mean, I would say that normally I have concerns about coming back and doing a compliance review because we're asking a business to invest in a business, and then there's this possibility that the conditions might change, but that is not the case here. So I'm a little more comfortable with doing the compliance review because the investment has clearly already been made.
Just to put it in context, the last time we had a compliance review was for that preschool garden on Montana and 4th Street, and that was appealed, and the city council decided to extend the compliance period. We asked for 2 years. They debated between 3 and 4 and settled on 3. So just to set a context for a compliance review. And Jason, I don't know if you would be comfortable with 3 years.
Restaurant, community garden.
Yeah, I would. Yep.
Okay. Do we have ready to vote?
You want to make it for 3 years now? What?
Yeah. So the idea of a compliance report is it introduces some incentive for the operator to keep the neighborhood calm and quiet, but it's also a risk for a business. And if the business is marginal, that could be the thing that is like a sword hanging over their head, and it might make it so that it's just not worth to keep going. So that's the danger of the compliance report.
If the complaints are wheels crackling in the parking lot at night as they pull out, is that count as a compliance problem, or is a compliance?
It's based on complaints.
Yeah, but I mean, is a
We
complaint?
would be looking for demonstration of compliance with the conditions of approval for the grant.
With the conditions of approval.
It's
So
like
it would
compliance with the noise ordinance. So
I see. Okay.
wheels in the
Wheels
parking
wouldn't
lot
count,
would not
but
be
shouting would
necessarily
count.
a
Okay.
violation of the noise ordinance.
I just want to make sure that it doesn't become,
If I may, Commissioner Anderson, are you good?
Done,
Okay.
thank you.
It strikes me that what we've heard from the applicant is that this is the go or no go moment for him. He's going to know within 6 to 9 months whether or not this CUP is going to make the difference for his business to survive, based on his testimony. So 3 years is great, because if he's doing really well, then 3 years from now, filing that compliance report is ultimately going to be a pleasure, because he'll have a ton of customers who are saying that this is a great asset to the community, which he's already demonstrated that he is, in my view. And if it doesn't work, he's not going to be here in 3 years to submit the compliance report. So, again, I'm happy with signage, but if a compliance report will satisfy concerns and arguably incentivize, a better performance, then I can live with a 3-year compliance report, especially if it's staff discretion as to whether or not it comes back to Planning Commission.
Okay.
Commissioner Fresco, is that okay?
So
Are you
let's-
okay with it? Can we amend our motion?
I don't like it.
Okay, well,
I mean, it just makes it all so precious and difficult for people to do things in the city if we put all this stuff on them. I don't know.
okay. So let's say
Let's try the motion with the signage
Okay.
and see how it flies.
Jason.
May I speak to why we're here?
Yes.
As much as we care about a small business being able to function in the city, that's not why we're here. Our purpose here is to find conditions that make that operation harmonious, function harmoniously with its surroundings. And so if it is the case, and I don't think it is the case, but if it is the case that we have to choose between the two. The overriding concern is harmony. And I think this approach is a way to allow flexibility while still ensuring over the long term, or at least the medium term, harmony.
What are the surroundings without restaurants and places to go? I mean, I feel like it goes both ways. You know, the surroundings are nothing if there are no businesses there. And right now, we're having a business problem in Santa Monica. We have vacant stores, we have restaurants going out of business, we have neighborhoods yearning for places to go that they can walk to, and you know, that's what creates the vibrance that we want to be in harmony with, and we're not there. We don't want to be in harmony with the absence of something.
Commissioner, what is, I guess to me, I don't feel like we've added any additional burdens, right? I mean,
Yeah,
right? I mean, we're not changing any of the conditions. We're just asking for the applicant to come back to ensure that with these extended hours, there aren't any concerns by the neighbors, right?
Okay.
I mean, I guess
I think
to me, this seems like a nice, right, a nice balance between the concerns that Commissioner Perry is expressing and the need for this business to succeed.
Well, it seems like, I mean, basically, I don't want to do anything that would prevent this applicant from getting his hours. So I will accept the compliance review, even though I think it's overkill. We have conditions, and he has a CUP that has them, and it's just overkill. But
Sometimes we have to live with other commissioners' overkill.
I love you, commissioners.
How do we go from
We'll call this
a
Perry
CUP to
compliance.
overkill? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been amended. The amendments are to add signage, encouraging patrons to be more respectful of their neighbors, and I would suggest a 3-year compliance review.
Yeah.
Do we have consensus on that? Jason, are you comfortable with that?
Can we hear the Roxanne, do you happen to have the language from the last, the kind of, just so our applicant knows what is being asked?
We'll bring the statement of official action back for the next hearing.
Okay, so
The burden on I think what Commissioner Fresco and I are concerned about is the burden on the administrative burden on the applicant's time away from running a restaurant. So in terms of what is being asked of him, that's all.
So the requirement that you'd be imposing, and I do want to just for clarity's sake, it is based on section 9.41080, and I just want to clarify what I said earlier is that the report would be submitted from the applicant, and staff shall either set the matter for a public hearing that'll be noticed, so that's like an automatic, staff says, okay, we've got the report, we're automatically setting it for a public hearing, or we would submit the compliance report to the commission as an info item, and then this commission would decide as a direction to staff to schedule it for that subsequent hearing. So that leaves more room for a future commission, different composition, for sure, to make that decision.
And that's a one-time.
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so we have a motion. It's been amended regarding variance 19 ENT 0172, which is the restaurant. And I think we're ready now to vote.
No, this is conditional use permit 18 ENT 0397.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong page. I'm glad you caught that. Yes, it's,
I don't think you meant to give hot dog on a stick an alcohol license.
I was trying. Okay, I'm glad you caught that. Yes, it's 18 ENT 0397 is the corrected motion. Okay, let's call the question.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco.
Yes.
Commissioner Landris.
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
Yes.
Chair Fonda Bernardi.
Yes.
And I would just like to make that request of staff that we have an update soon on the pedestrian the pedestrian safety improvements on East Pico relative to some of the work that was done about 18 months ago, looking at lights and crosswalks. There was extensive resident and business outreach, so it'd just be good to have, even as an info item, an update on what's happening. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Okay, any future agenda items? We were getting close, Amy. We were getting close to your record, but yeah.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Nice job.